I've invited 3 of your classmates to come sit on a table, and we're going to have a conversation about what it means to be Jewish.
My name is Kenzie. I'm a sophomore communications major. I'm from Rhode Island, and I'm a Reform Jew.
I'm Jess. I'm a criminology major. I'm a sophomore. I'm from outside of Philly, and I'm also a Reform Jew.
Hi, I'm Zach. I'm from just outside New York City, New York. I'm a junior, criminology major, and I'm Sephardic.
The 2 of you said Reform Jews. Tell people what that means. Orthodox Jews, the idea is like, no, these are the actual words of God, and we need to, and they become legally binding. So this reminds me of, in Islam, Sharia law. If you're religious in any way, you're going to align yourself with some synagogue somewhere, and which means a rabbi.
Another big thing about Judaism is just always asking questions.
I watched as a kid where Sundays, stores are closed on Sundays and things you wouldn't do on Sundays, and you just don't do that. And suddenly, by the time I get to a certain age, nothing's closed on Sundays, except Chick-fil-A or whatever. Nothing's closed. And this was normal. You just don't, you have big dinners on Sundays because nothing's open. Wait, but what happens when you die? Where do you believe you go?
I'm still living.
The 2 of you said Reform Jews. Tell people what that means.
It was like Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, and Reform is kind of like the most chill, I would say. You can kind of choose how you want to be religious. I don't know. It's kind of like you believe in everything that is Judaism, but you're not constantly praying all the time, and you kind of get to choose what it means to you.
Reform has shorter services because you don't go into as much as conservative or Orthodox. We also don't have the same restrictions as Orthodox do.
And in each family or each temple or each synagogue or each rabbi can kind of decide. And you can be drawn to a rabbi who's like, hey man, it's cool. You can do this stuff over here. It's not a big deal, right? Bro, and you said
Sephardic. I'm also Reform. Sephardi Jews are just Jews that came from Spain, Portugal, after the Jewish diaspora in the late 1800s.
After Jews got kicked out of somewhere else, right? But you're also Reformed.
Yeah.
Christians, you got to kind of take a step out here because the Bible goes back, and we start with the Old Testament. It's telling stories from centuries before the birth of Jesus. So you got to believe in this somehow. And are these the actual words of God? Or is this the divinely inspired words of God? Or what is this? Orthodox Jews it's no, these are the actual words of God. When you read the Torah, can you say what the Torah is?
The Torah is just our holy script, I guess.
Yeah, it's the most important, the first 5 books of the Bible. Orthodox Jews, the idea is no, these are the actual words of God, and we need to, and they become legally binding. So this reminds me of, in Islam, Sharia law. People who believe in Sharia believe this is the only book right here, the Holy Quran, is the only book that any Muslim or Muslim community needs. Right here. Everything is in this book, including all of the prescriptions about how to act and how not to act. So everything you want is right here. So the Sharia Taliban in Afghanistan, for example, use this as their legal book and as their religious book. So if somebody breaks a law in Afghanistan for the Taliban, they go to the Quran and say all right, man, we got to dig through here and see how we're going to adjudicate the fact that this person broke the law. So the judge now in Afghanistan is sitting with a Quran on their desk. Not a book of laws, of written out laws about what's right and wrong and so on. It's this. This becomes the thing. So for Orthodox Jews, the first 5 books, which are the Torah of the Old Testament, are the essential laws. And there's like 613 of them. Do you know that? The 613? It's like people have like written out. Like there's 613 really critical laws for Jews. Then you got to follow those. Conservative Jews are like, yeah, we're kind of in between. There are a bunch you got to follow, but you can't make laws out of these things. Like, come on, man. Like, you can't, it's not legalistic. But conservatives try to follow as much as they can. Reformed Jews, like you all, are just like, yeah, well, I'm like a rabbi, and I'm like, yeah, okay, premarital sex. Like, well, I have premarital sex. Like, okay, that's fine. You all, like, if you come and I'm advising you, you can do that. Oh, smoking marijuana, not a problem. Go ahead. You live in New Jersey, like it's legal there. Yeah, do what you want to do. These kinds of things, right? So you're gonna, and I don't mean actually to be that way, to make fun of it, because it's not that. I mean, don't make light of it, right? Because I'm not. But what I'm saying is, you can be really thoughtful about the way you interpret the important scriptures, right?
I feel like that's the big thing about Reform Judaism is you kind of take it in your own way and you decide what it means to you.
Yeah.
And like I haven't done a lot of Torah study in my life, but when I have, usually we take like the scripture for that week and you just talk about what it means to you and specifically relates to like your life and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it's up to your own interpretation. Reform.
But in your case, because Jewish people, you're like Christians. Now, this is where Muslims are a little bit different, but you're like Christians that if you're religious in any way, you're going to align yourself with some synagogue somewhere, and which means a rabbi or a rebbe for the conservatives, right, for the Orthodox. And that means that they have a lot of say for Reformed rabbis, like how they are going to how they are going to interpret things. So if I'm one of you, like one of your parents, or if I'm one of you, right, and I move to a new city, I'm gonna go check out. Tell me if I'm correct here, right? You're gonna go check out different Reformed rabbis, have conversations with them, and see if you like the way they're interpreting this, right, bro?
Yeah. Like growing up, I think I probably went to like 3 or 4 different synagogues.
Uh-huh.
And it was all based like, all right, like my parents pretty much thinking like, all right, who do we know here? Like, how good is the rabbi? Do we like what he's saying in his sermons?
Or she, in the case of Reformed, right? Or, could be she.
Or she. But yeah, it's really just more so like the rabbi who you follow.
Do the things that they think are sins the same things that we think are sins, right? This is what Christians do, right? If you're a Protestant, you got a whole bunch of churches you can go to, and you can just shop around till you find that one person. Like if you're gay, those of you who are gay in here and you're Christians, you can find a Christian church where they'll accept people who are gay. You guys, same thing. If you're gay, you can find a rabbi. You can also go to a Reformed synagogue, and the rabbi is like not into queer relations at all, and you'd be like, all right, hang on, I'm not going there, right? But not likely. It's less likely in the Jewish community.
I feel like, for me personally, well, I've been going to the same temple since I was in 3rd grade, so I didn't really have much of a choice. I mean, I love my temple. It's the best thing ever. But for me, I feel like it has to do with the rabbis to an extent. And like the Torah study that I was talking about, a lot of it was done within like youth spaces.
Yeah.
Led by youth.
Yeah.
Ideas and questions that are brought up by people who are my age and kind of like steered in the right direction by like adult leadership. But for the way that I've experienced a lot of my like older Jewish life has been through the lens of just being a teenager and being
Got you.
around other teenagers
Got
and
you.
the way that we kind of see it.
But in your town, I can guarantee, is another synagogue where the rabbi may be reformed, but is not into giving young people that much freedom to ask questions.
Definitely.
And and then your parents would say like, nah, we're not going to go over there. We're going to go over here.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Like another big thing about Judaism is just always asking questions.
Dude.
Like during one of our holidays, Passover, there's a whole part where it's questioning why are we doing this, and it's just asking questions and not being like overconfident. It's just a big part of being Jewish.
Yeah. What happens after life? Oh yeah, all right, man. Dude, yeah. Dude, the three of you should be experts on this, so please answer that for Campbell K. What do you guys believe? Like what happens after you die?
Well, Jewish people don't really believe in hell or heaven. We just believe that one day the Messiah or God is going to come back to Jerusalem and just bring everybody back.
That's what Christians believe too, by the way. Christians, you got this? You're like, same thing.
Yeah. And
Muslims, you're in a slightly different game here. But what happens when you die? Where do you believe you go?
I'm still living.
Hey, dude, I love that. Hey, do they teach you anything? Like,
I feel like when I think about, I feel like I haven't really had a lot of conversations about afterlife, but what I've kind of learned is that you want to live your life on earth the best that you can while you're here. And I feel like that's something that kind of sets Judaism apart, is that we're not worried about making it somewhere afterwards. We want to live the best life that we can while we're here, impact the most people, have the best time, things like that.
Yeah, you're not thinking about the consequences of the afterlife, right? Like Christians and Muslims both. And I say this because these are two the Abrahamic religions. Abrahamic, right? Abraham is the patriarch of Jewish people, and from Jewish people we have Christians, and from Christians we have Muslims, so it's this whole tradition. But the idea is that you're going to be judged by God when you die, but you're all not focusing on the judgment part, right? But Christians came up with that because that's where Jesus comes in, and that whole judgment thing, and yeah.
I also think, not to speak for her, but I think that was part of the reason why my mom converted, was just because like we're not really thinking about those types of things. Whereas like within like Christianity or Catholicism, it's like, oh no, I don't want to do this. I'm gonna go to hell. Like,
dude, was she Catholic?
Yeah.
Oh God.
It's like we don't really have that. You're just trying to be happy, and I think that also adds to why the community is so special.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, I got that.
Like I never felt any sort of fear at Temple ever for any reason.
Yeah, that's wild. Same with you? You don't have that?
I feel like it's more of a like where you're gonna be, like if you trying to be buried in a Jewish cemetery than like what your afterlife is.
Can you explain Shabbat? So sundown on a Friday begins the Sabbath.
I used to do Shabbat dinners all the time as a kid. You say prayers, you have a nice dinner, something called challah, which is like just a big loaf of bread.
Unleavened bread.
No.
Oh, yeah.
That's matzah.
Oh, that's the matzah. Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, challah bread. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Yep. Yeah.
It's a nice meal. And for the Orthodox community, they're not allowed to work. They're not allowed to use power. Not allowed to do anything really, but just hang out until Saturday night, sundown. But like for Reform families, if you like do Shabbat dinners, it's just a really nice dinner.
Shabbat's seen as like the day of rest. It's the end of the week, the day of rest. Saturdays are when we have prayer services, like how you would on Sundays if you go to church. We have ours on Saturdays. And yeah, there are lots of laws that go into Shabbat where if you're Orthodox, you'll follow them very strictly. And in some Orthodox communities, they actually have I don't know exactly what it's called. There's like the wire that goes around the community. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. There are some places, I know there's a really big Orthodox community in New York City that has it. And like I went to an Orthodox camp one time and it was there. And there's this wire that will go basically around the perimeter of the community. And when you're within that wire, it's been like blessed by rabbis and everything. And you can basically perform most acts. Like you can still kind of work. Like you can, because you're not allowed to, on Shabbat, you're not technically allowed to like carry anything. You're not allowed to, sometimes you're not even like allowed to write and things like that. So if you're in these sorts of spaces, you're allowed to do those
so
things.
Here's the thing, right? So here, let me see if I can get this down. I watched as a kid where Sundays, stores are closed on Sundays and things you wouldn't do on Sundays, and like, you just don't do that. And suddenly, by the time I get to a certain age, nothing's closed on Sundays, except Chick-fil-A or whatever. Nothing's closed. And like this was normal. You just don't, you have big dinners on Sundays because nothing's open. And in the Muslim communities, we see a similar thing, right? But the idea being that there's a time of rest in the Abrahamic tradition. There's a day of rest. And you take that, and that's time for community and time for yourself. But it gets not corrupted, but it changes with modernization, right? So like, for example, when I was in Jerusalem, and I didn't see that this wasn't true in Tel Aviv, that I didn't saw it where I stayed, but I stayed at this hotel, and like you can't push buttons for like the elevator to go up and down. And so they have Shabbat setting. You go in with the key, they put it on Shabbat setting, and the elevator goes to the first floor, the second floor, and the doors open, and the doors close. It goes to the third floor, doors open, doors close, and fourth floor, and it goes all the way up, and then it comes all the way down. And it just never stops for 24 hours. It just does that. Nobody's touching the buttons. It's just opening and closing, opening and closing. And so if you're staying, like one time I stayed on the 7th floor of this hotel, I'm like, F this, I'm not doing this. I just took the stairs. But the idea is like, my thinking is, come on, man. Like, you're cheating. Like, you're supposed to take the stairs or stay home. Like, that's not what this is about. You know what I mean? But everybody plays the game. This is what I mean about the rabbi can just decide, oh, we can do that, or we cannot do that. It just depends. You just got to find someone who will accept it.
I heard stories too. My great-grandmother actually used to pay a little boy down the hall to like turn on and off the lights on Shabbat. She'd give him like a quarter or something.
Yeah, like everybody has dimmers in their house. You can't turn it on or off, but you can dim it up or dim it down. That kind of thing, right? I'm like, stove. You just turn the Shabbat setting on where it's just running at like 150 degrees for 24 hours. But if you need to make bread, you can crank it up to 400 and then crank it back down. That's okay. And for me, I'm like, as a sociologist, I'm thinking this is pretty awesome, but I feel like it's cheating, man. Like, feels like cheating to me. I had the experience where I got stuck in a parking garage and nobody would push the button to open the door. And my buddy and I, because it was after sundown on Shabbat, and I'm like, we're gonna spend 24 hours stuck in this parking garage. Like, this is not happening. But they finally found some Arab to come, and it was Arab Christian to push the button, and then we got out. But what happens at a religious service on a Saturday? Like, what do you do?
Read from the Torah.
Is that it? I mean, do you sing? Do you in a black church, if you ever gone to a black Christian church, first off, it's going to be like 3-hour worship service, but you're singing, you're dancing, you got tambourines going. It's a lot of fun. It's pretty cool. What do y'all do? That's it? You read from the Torah?
Like every temple is different. Like I know my cousins go to a place where it's just like pretty much all singing. But like temple I went to, it's like there's a big service, prayers, and then after that it's a nice like Saturday brunch,
like a gathering.
Yeah.
There's also Friday night services,
yeah,
which are shorter, and just every Jewish like service that I've been a part of, there's lots of singing and usually dancing, and it's like upbeat and happy, and sometimes the songs are all in Hebrew, sometimes they're English, sometimes they're a mixture of both, and they're like a lot of fun, I'd say, sometimes, depending on where you're at.